Welcome to all inspiring chefs, cooks, and everything in between alike. This is Griever, your guys' host as always. This is my bar, the place I'm always at, and this is none other than Shokugeki no Soma, chapter 311. So, let's get cooking, ladies and gentlemen, because I want to talk about this. Because we finally got the reveal of Soma's mother. And people are going to overhype this chapter. For me, the Azami chapter, about 2 or 3 chapters ago, was the best chapter of 2019 for Shokugeki no Soma, bar none. And this chapter has not changed my mind about this. Though this chapter has very little nitpick issues of any real description, the reveal of Soma's mother, it's one of those things that we see a lot in shonen. The silhouetted figures are overhyped to the point that when they get revealed, the fan base loses their shit over it. And me personally, I'm just like, okay, so we're putting a name to the face. Great. And what did we all expect? Well, she's a female Soma. She's got Soma's face and acts like him, with Kuga's hair, like Kuga's hairstyle, a little longer version. So I'm just like, okay, and we get a few panels. I'm more interested in the grandfather. The grandfather's there. He looks like Dominic or something like that from Full Metal Alchemist. The dude, the automail mechanic that Winry was learning from and stuff, looks a lot like that character to me. And I was like, yeah, okay, that dude. I want to know more about him, you know. So I'm not trying to downplay the chapters, guys, but or this specific chapter, because I still thought it was good. But I want everyone to calm down with the hype. Everyone's praising this chapter. Everyone who was hating on the series week in and week out. Now, I've had my fair share of nitpick and hate for certain chapters or certain plot ideas, but I hate it when people do that turncoat thing. Oh, I always had faith in the series. Well, no, just because we finally got the reveal of a silhouetted figure. You know, if One Piece goes downhill tomorrow, it won't. But if One Piece were to go downhill for a whole arc and a half, and all of a sudden we see Luffy's mother, everyone would lose their shit. But that doesn't forgive the last year, does it? Just food for thought. Pun intended. Anyways, the rest of the chapter was pretty good. I don't really want to go to panel by panel. I guess I can. Simply put, Mana does try Soma's dish, and she's very surprised, though she doesn't believe she'll enjoy it because she brings a bucket and says, when I vomit this up, at least I'll have a bucket close by, sort of idea. But she tries it. She can't stop herself. It's delicious. She found this new flavor, blah, blah, blah. Soma tells everyone how this kind of went down, and there's this mayonnaise, homemade mayonnaise dish, the oeuf de mayonnaise, in French cuisine or French bistros, and it's a very interesting cooking thing with vegetables and stuff like that. Anyways, suffice to say, he used this in combination with the rice and a little bit too advanced techniques for me to fully grasp and understand as far as just a homebrew chef. But suffice it to say, it clearly worked to Soma's advantage, and he talks about, you know, his mother a little bit and talks about that this was her dish sort of idea, and we get a flashback. Now, the flashback includes quite a bit of information. We see Soma's mother finally. She's very Soma with Kuga's hairstyle, and I guess that's where the Yukihira diner came from. It was clearly, she was the daughter, it was the grandfather's, her father's, and we see Soma's grandfather, and we see a little tiny chibi Soma who does not have the scar yet. Good to know. So 6-year-old Soma did not get the scar, so it was between 6 and 15 or whatever. Joshiro at this point is married to the daughter. They're like 27, 28, something like that. And we see he is cooking for everyone and stuff, but everyone loves the place because of her charisma, because of her personality, because the place is still great and stuff, and it's almost like a challenge, kind of like a wing-eating contest or one of those, can you stand the spiciest hot sauce sort of thing. It's a gamble. It's a, we'll try one of your specials, bring it out. And she can't cook. She's terrible at cooking. But she made one decent dish, even though she used to, as they say in the flashback, she burnt it a lot. But if you dug through the burnt bits, it's kind of like if you overcook rice. You know, you get that crusted rice on the outside, but the inside of the pot is still good. You wasted half a cup of rice, but still the core of that rice is still perfectly cooked, right? So it's the same idea here, and she made this really good rice dish that everyone liked. And it was the only thing she successfully ever cooked. And Soma loved cooking with his mother, not so much his father back then. And it was like, okay. And even Joshiro acknowledges like this form of failure, this is something I would never attempt because it's doomed to fail from the get-go. It's one of those things when you look at cooking knowledge, when people study an art and when you master an art, to flip something on its head, the fundamental rules that someone has been following for 10, 15, 25 years, and you go to them and you try to flip that knowledge on them and say, well, this fundamental law is just wrong. It completely just, your world kind of, like, you can't comprehend it. I suppose it would be similar to the people that believe that the earth was the center of the universe, or the people that believe the earth was flat sort of concept. The whole, what the truth was would have completely bamboozled them, to use a fun little word. It's one of those things that you just don't think of. As an electrician, I can tell you right now that if someone were to tell me that the way I understand electricity right now is fundamentally flawed because what I've believed this whole time about this, I won't go in depth, but some very basic electrical concepts were completely wrong, not even backwards or a little slightly altered, but just wrong, and this is the way it's worked the whole time, it would be very difficult for someone who's worked as one for so long to wrap my head around that, because I'd have to rethink every single job. I'd have to rewire my experience and my thinking, and a lot of the time you can't do that, right? So in this instance with cooking, that's what Soma's mother managed to do. She managed to impart that onto Soma, and that's why Joshiro, we thought it was kind of came a little bit from Joshiro himself a little bit, but it came from actually Soma's mother entirely, because Joshiro himself says, I wouldn't have thought to do that. And Sarge brings it up, and everyone brings this up once we are finished with the flashback, that why would you ever do that? Like, the chance of failure is so damn high, and if you failed, you were screwed. Nobody would take the risk. The risk of failure is too great, and that scares people. It gives them the yips, the nerves, the whole, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. It's kind of reminding me of the end of Prince of Tennis, the first season or series, to be honest with you, where people get the yips, and the whole leading to the pinnacle of perfection is something where you stop focusing on competition and winning, and you just have to go back to your love of the game, the love of the sport. This is a very similar concept where it's not about winning all the time. It's not about succeeding every time. It's about loving cooking, loving the art of cooking, trying to find a new flavor, trying to find something new and exciting to cook. And that's all this is. And Soma says this to Asya. It just says, you, with all your techniques and all your abilities, you're fantastic. And I understand this. But there's one thing you've never done. You've never tasted failure. You've never had that. And people have brought up this concept before in previous chapters. This was going to be the thing. And I believe, I forget who this was, but I believe that this was brought up before in another Shokugeki match, just not as impactful, to the point that it was like, because you've never failed, you can't push yourself that 1% higher. You won't take those daring risks because the odds are against you. Like, to put it in perspective of numbers, Saiba probably went 51%, not 49. He took risks with this dish he made. And I'm just going to be generous and say that it was 51. It was probably a higher number. But he gambled the odds and said, here is my safe bet. He will not go below that. 51%. He's got, the odds are in his favor. He's not going to gamble something below that number. Soma is willing to try the 1% value. He's willing to cook the dishes that nobody else will cook. The dishes from the 49% mark all the way down to the 1%. He's willing to try them, even though they are likely to fail, that the gamble will not pay off. And we've seen this with all his creations. We saw it with Joshiro in the past, showcasing the volume today. He was burning off steam. This great, fantastic, the greatest chef of his generation was making these disgusting inventions that he knew wouldn't work, but he tried them anyway. Very similar here. And this is what's going to defeat Asuya is this whole concept of he doesn't understand failure. He doesn't know what it's like to fail, and that's the true part of his dish. That's the theme of Soma's dish, is a failed dish creation. A created dish that is based in failure from the get-go. And I mean, it's fun to understand. I might be reading a little too much more into it than is necessary, but I really like it. This Asuya just goes on like, I beat Joshiro, I beat the best. See, and that's the thing, everybody acknowledges Joshiro's the best. Once again, Joshiro did not lose. I actually read some comments that people will be mad if Joshiro pulled his punches and lost intentionally for all this to go down the way it did. Why would you be mad about that? Because Joshiro is the best. You're telling me that you're happy. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me that everyone's upset with this arc and the superhuman abilities and all the noir and all the Toriko level of craziness introduced in this arc. You can't be unhappy with that and then be happy with the fact that Joshiro also lost to Cross Knives, which would be the only reason he would lose. Same with Tsukasa. Tsukasa only lost to Saibase, and this is just my theory, but I don't think he's really he's definitely an all-star cook. Asuya is definitely a great cook, and he's still top tier, but he's not as great without Cross Knives. He would not be able to match Soma, Joshiro, Tsukasa, Arena, none of these characters if he didn't have Cross Knives. That's just a fact. He just wouldn't be able to do it. So that's my theory, but it's what I believe. So Joshiro definitely pulled his punches for me, and this is where, because he keeps toning on how he beat him, and Joshiro's not really denying it, but he's not approving of it. We're going to have that reveal at the end here. But then the last page we see the stripping, the grand stripping. Something's happening. Wait, it's different. And cliffhanger. So I hope you guys are excited for chapter 312. This chapter has built some hype. This was one of those intermediate chapters. Like they built the hype at the end. We're more excited for 312 than we really are for 311. Everyone's once again going to lose their shit over Soma's, a name to the face sort of idea, the mother. But the flashback was short, and all it showcased was she was what we always thought she was. People are more interested to see how she saved Joshiro from the sandstorm and the wasteland and the storm of cooking. People are more interested in that, not so much where Soma got his inspiration for his dish. I mean, it's still interesting, but I think the whole Soma's mother thing, the story we're interested in is Joshiro and her story, not so much the relationship between Soma and his mother. But that's just me. What do you guys think in the comments section down below? As always, this has been Griever. Like, comment, and subscribe. It's always really much appreciated. This has been Shokugeki no Soma Chapter 311 review. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm looking really forward to 312. This was a good chapter. I feel like I'm not doing it. It's fair, it's dues. I'm not giving it enough credit. But honestly, I wasn't as hyped for this as with the whole Azami chapter. So maybe I'm just still living on the hype of that part and just expecting more at this point. But either way, still a great chapter. And as always, drink responsibly. We'll see you back here next time, guys.